We are about. You're good. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Now that the link that
We are live.
Are we? Good. Thank you so much. Is he sending a tweet? All right. Welcome, everyone. We are thrilled to be coming together and very happy to be coming together since this is our thankfulness theme for the day with the Creating the Future Board of Directors. Thank you for your participation today. Creating the Future envisions communities where people are living well, individually and collectively. We know such a future is possible simply because it's not impossible. To accomplish that, our 10-year mission is to change the questions embedded in the day-to-day work of individuals and organizations so that everyone naturally...
You're good.
Someone needs to turn their... That was me. How about that? Sorry about that. I really apologize. There's a delay in one of the feeds. All right. Let's begin at the beginning. I can hear Dimitri in the background. Is he, Candice, is he...
He's in the other room.
He's close to organizing what he needs to organize?
Yes, but he's in the other...
All right. Then we will begin now, at this point, by welcoming everyone to the October 2014 board meeting of Creating the Future. So happy that you're all here. We are still to have Carl Wilding joining us. He'll be coming in about an hour. Hildy Gottlieb will be coming in about an hour. But we will begin, as always, in the places that we always do with introductions and description from every participant about what has been awesome and for what are you thankful, since this is Canadian Thanksgiving and I've been talking away about the fact that there is much for us to be thankful for. So first and foremost, we're thankful that all of you are here. And for people who are participating via Twitter by watching us on the Creating the Future Walking the Talk blog, we let you know participating is very welcome. We are so thrilled that you might be with us today, that you can ask questions, offer comments, and insights into what the conversation is about today by doing that with the hashtag CTFuture. CTFuture. So we're hoping that we will hear from all of you, and Candice, you'll let us know who you're seeing in the Twitter stream. Anyone yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. Cool. Well, when they arrive, they will be very welcome. But for now, why don't we begin with go around and welcome and introductions. Justin, will you start us out?
I still have a tech issue, so maybe Mark can start us.
All right. Mark, okay. Can you hear us? There he is.
I'm here.
Hi, Mark.
That's my positive for today.
You're here. Wow.
I'm just spending a lot of time with the grandkids, and that's a nice change of pace.
Beautiful. Cool.
Instead of twice a month, well, instead of twice a year, or previously once or twice a month, now it's once or twice a week, and that's pretty cool.
Twice a week? That sounds awesome. And Mark, how old are your grandchildren?
6 and 4.
Oh. So they're also the perfect age.
Yes.
You know, grandkids are always the perfect age.
Yeah, they're the perfect age and the perfect kids. That's brilliant. And tell us about the weather where you are.
So I've been having a rather long summer here. Normally, we will get a couple of freezes in September, and maybe we'll get some cold rain or snow in October here and there. But the last 3 weeks, it's been in the mid-70s.
Wow.
It's supposed to be in the mid-70s tomorrow, and then it's supposed to change a little bit. But think back to a year ago when I left Montana, that big snowstorm that out of cattle in South Dakota chased me out of the state. So much more mellow summer and early fall than last year.
Woohoo!
Very cool. Very cool.
I'm stunned to hear that it hasn't snowed yet.
Yes.
Well, there's snow way up on the mountains, but not down here. I'm at like 3,100 feet.
Wow.
But she has an iPhone.
Now, Justin, how is your tech going?
I think I'm okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's two of you in there.
Well, I think my other one should drop off because I had to restart. I'm over onto the mobile device here, so that's better. Well, we, in terms of the weather piece, we're moving into fall here in DC, which is where I am. So we're starting to get a little bit of color, which is nice. That's there. I think my awesome right now is actually very creating the future focused. I met with one of our other fellows, Bill Music, the other day, and talking about a project that I've been kind of discussing that's been in the works for quite some time that's now coming to fruition, which is I think has the potential to be a pretty large-scale demonstration and engagement process for creating the future and our fellows. So I could share more about that, but it's just sort of to be in this space of having an organization here in the region who's actually really interested in going this route and seeing what it uncovers for them and for the community is really great.
Wow. Congratulations, Justin. I know you've been putting in a huge amount of work on that.
Yeah, it's one of these, when we talk about the long tail and going, putting a lot up front before anything happens. I mean, we still don't have the funding yet, but everyone's, supposedly all the ducks are in a row. But yeah, there's, it's been almost a full engagement before it's even started an engagement.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Nice. And how is Bill Music?
He's doing really well. It was nice to see him. I knew him from some other crossing of paths, and it was just nice to, sit down and touch base with him and see, things seem to be going well with him, and he's looking for making, some of those transitions that some of us make a little bit later in our lives, and I think that's really exciting for him. And being able to think through that. So, but I shouldn't speak for him too much.
Right. We'll just get him on the phone and do the same. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. All right. Candace, how about you?
Good. I want to apologize at first. I kind of have a cold right now, so if I'm being a little quiet, my voice. But no, things are good. I had a really nice time back home. I went camping last week, and yesterday I did a 5K through a corn maze in Arizona, which just made me giggle because there's a corn maze in Arizona. So that was a lot of fun. And
iPhone, or if
amazing.
suggestion she might, but I'm going to put it there. Hi, everybody. Jim Bendel is having some tech issues, so he's going to join us via the cell phone right now. Unless, Gail, you have some magic for him doing it via an iPhone, because he's been trying to set it up and do it via his iPhone, and you're our resident iPhone expert.
I don't have any wizardry about how to get how to make any of it work. It sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
Okay. All right. Well, barring that, Jim, say hello.
Hi, Jim.
Hi. And I'm sitting here in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Temperatures.
Justin, can you mute?
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Jim, if you would repeat where you are and what your temperature is.
I'm in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, 30 miles east of Pittsburgh. Temperature 65. I'm going to play tennis today at 5 o'clock. Does anybody give a damn?
Woo!
Can everybody hear him?
Yes, I heard that.
Okay, great.
I especially heard the part about playing tennis at 5 o'clock. Wow.
And Jim, are you hearing us okay?
Yes.
Good, good.
Okay. So, Jim, what has been awesome for you lately?
Say it again.
What has been awesome, and or what are you thankful for?
All right. And I would say awesome for me is the fact that the woman who I work with has received a significant advancement in the Pittsburgh Foundation system. Susan Acito, who went through the Creating the Future training here, short time immersion, is now going to Pittsburgh in a significant role as the grant manager. And I applaud that move, and I celebrate the fact that she is making a significant professional leap forward. That's probably the best thing that's happened for her, and I share in the joy of her doing that.
Mm.
Yeah, Susan is pretty amazing. We in an immersion class in your office, actually, Jim.
Yes.
I was continually impressed by her, and when Jim is talking about a significant advancement, she's the program officer now for the Pittsburgh Foundation in Pittsburgh. So that really is a huge advancement for her, and it's obviously a big win for them as well, because they're gaining a lot. And the only one who, though, shares her joy, I know you're going to miss her, Jim.
Yep. And we will still be in touch with her, obviously, since we work together. But it gives her a chance to just let her wings spread and do some more stuff that will just make her more valuable in the future. And I guess Hildy and Dimitri, I won't stay on this long, but I just want to say thank you. For me, creating the future is a big deal. And I'll miss Susan because we were able to pair and complement each other with the skills that we have. But creating the future is part of our culture now. And when we are involved in the future, know that it's here. It's not like it's a book that's up on the shelf. And that gets demonstrated two ways in grants that we've received. Number one is a significant opportunity to work with communities in Westmoreland County, the 7 third-class cities, all of whom have had very significant regressing because they moved from being manufacturing communities to struggling communities. We went to a major foundation for funding, and we have used some of the basic tenets of creating the future, even in putting together the request for proposals. That's a big deal. And then also going back to the other major foundation, the Mellon Foundation, which we asked for $300,000. That may not seem like a lot of money to some folks, but for us to award in grants in 2015, that is a big deal. Creating the future is right there in the culture of what we're doing. That's my quick overview of Hildy and Dimitri, and it says a lot for what you've given to us.
That's wonderful, James. It has been a mutual pleasure, and I'm so glad that you're in our meeting today. This is that's part of my awesome, is to have you here today. You know that we start our meetings out with talking about our awesomes, and I'm sorry that I didn't get to hear. I know I didn't get to hear Justin's. I heard a little bit of it, and I heard Mark starting, so I'm still going to go back and see what Mark found awesome today. I wanted to kind of move next. I know you gave your awesome too, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. You're up, DP.
I'm up. Okay. Well, obviously, what I just mentioned is having Jim here, which is pretty cool. The other awesome from a work perspective, or from a Creating the Future perspective, is the fact that we finally went through a very long process and have selected a new logo design for Creating the Future. which I think is not what I would have expected in terms of the logo. I mean, I don't know what I expected, but it is really amazing. It's also, Gail, I wanted to say, it's one of those, everything happens in the last 5 minutes. This is like the last logo that arrived was this one. The last logo design that arrived was this one. And got included in the final look-see, and the reactions were overwhelming. People just loved it, and there's still going to be some tweaks and things, I'm sure, on it. But to me, that was a huge, huge awesome, and I'm looking forward to see where that goes. The kind of personal awesome was this weekend. Was a huge sort of outdoor weekend, and people who know me is I'm like a free and on the street person. If it's free and on the street, I'm right there and enjoying that. And the weather was perfect, and there's a festival that happens in Tucson every year called Tucson Meet Yourself, which is a cultural festival that has been going on for 20-some years, I think now, where different groups, organizations, ethnic communities, churches, and whatever, basically come out and share their culture. So there's dancing, there's food, there's art, there's whatever, and it just happens in a park. That this has been going on for years and years and years. Well, now it's gigantic. I mean, initially it started out, it was just this little, 10 groups got together and were doing this. And there's one guy who does this, who was sort of the founder of this, who is a folklorist. He's the resident folklorist at the university here, and this was one of his sort of passions, is that we learn about each other and how important that is. So I was there Saturday evening, and there's kind of a revival of the downtown area for the people who've been here and have seen it. That's sort of been going on with a new streetcar and other things that have happened. So it was unbelievable. I mean, the number of people, the events, the things going on. So to me, it was just awesome to be there and to experience it, and that's my personal awesome.
Sounds amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing. And I need to add that it's Tucson Meet Yourself, but the locals call it Tucson Eat Yourself. Because it's primarily food. I mean, there's many things that are going on. When I was there was what was it? Southeast Island Festival dancers. So there was all these hula dancers that were out dancing, and I never realized there's that much of a community here of people from that part of the world. But there's enough to have community to be able to share their culture and to do this thing on the main stage, and they've got like 4 or 5 different stages, and it pretty much closes the downtown. It runs from that to the lowrider car exhibit, where all these guys have their cars with the hoods open and everything else that you can. So it's just pretty amazing.
Sounds fabulous. Do other people's communities have something like that, a celebration of various cultural traditions? There's certainly one in Guelph that's very popular.
Well, we have probably nothing that is large-scale region-wide, but there's a lot of localized events going on throughout the year.
Mark, do they do that sort of thing where you are?
Oh, yeah.
Good to know.
All sorts of craziness that goes on here of cultural nature of one kind or another. Like this past weekend, I went to the Montana Brewers Association Brewfest, and there were, I forget how many breweries, but there were 145 different beers to sample.
Ooh.
It was just awful, but I had to do it.
Did you sample them all?
No, I didn't have time to hit them all, but I hit the high spots for sure.
Good to know. You took a bullet for everybody. That's good.
Yeah.
They certainly do here. And Jim, do they do that where you are?
Not yet.
Aha, an opportunity then. Well, I will finish. Is there anyone in the Twitter stream yet that we want to acknowledge or welcome?
Not at the moment, Jim.
Okay. Do you know why? It's because all the Canadians come to our...
Rebecca heard, and that she's learning so much through our Skype jam session, and that she's learning that fellows can be together. So, thank you, Rebecca. That's her awesome.
I like hearing that. Rebecca and I have been getting together for conversation in the last few weeks, and just, free-flowing. That's actually, let that be one of my awesomes today, is that we have been just talking and getting to know each other, and it's been amazing. And so I'm really thrilled to know that Rebecca is here today, and we've been talking about how there's a challenge between, not a challenge, but when you're taking minutes, listening to this group of people go through any topic is, it's a full-body experience, so you can't really participate and take notes at the same time. So I'm really glad, Rebecca, that you're here with the ability to just be without having to do anything more than keep this conversation flowing. Second, obviously, for me is that it's Thanksgiving, and so it's been a weekend of, I've had 2 turkey dinners so far, and with friends, first of all, on Saturday, and family on Sunday, and 2 absolutely spectacular gatherings with people that I care deeply about. And so today has been a bit of a, kind of rest from all that consuming and celebrating, and glad then to be here with my Creating the Future family for the 3rd. And I was just showing Candace and Dimitri that I do have a turkey that I can show you. It's made out of chocolate, and I will consume little bits of it over the course of our meeting. So it's the 3rd celebration.
I was going to wonder how that was still in one piece.
Well, I have nibbled on the feet, so.
Justin, she opened it as we got on this call, so I mean it was brown.
Okay.
It hasn't been sitting around very long.
Yeah, its days are numbered.
Slow turkey consumption going on.
That's right. And there's no, what's the stuff called that's in turkey that puts you to sleep? There's none of that in this thing.
The tryptophan. No, you get caffeine instead from the chocolate.
Yeah, look out. People know that you don't come near me when I'm having caffeine. So, anybody else that we have yet to hear from? We'll get Hildy's awesome when she joins us, and Carl's awesome. You all know that you saw a note that said that Alex would not be able to join us today, and Sydney is probably, as we speak, teaching his class, so he won't be with us until at least December. So we'll say hello to them both, but regrets that they aren't with us.
I do want to mention that Alex will be moderating a live hangout tomorrow. So if you are missing Alex, you'll get to see him tomorrow. And Justin, if you want to talk about what that live hangout will be, I'll let you be the purveyor of great and interesting news.
Well, sure. I know that Hildy had asked a handful of folks who went through the immersion class last year. Rebecca, who's following us and tweeting, is one of them, and Lisa Humlick, who's the other, to share a bit about how things have changed for them since taking immersion. And so the 3 of us foolishly volunteered to allow our brains to be our brains and our hearts to be queried, and Alex has volunteered to moderate that session. So I think he's also going to bring his perspective, as well as him being kind of a new member of the community too through the board to that conversation. So we're looking forward to it.
Beautiful. And what time is that happening?
That is happening 2:30 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So I will leave it to everybody else to translate.
Yes.
2:30 Eastern Time. Okay.
And there will be a live stream of it, and it will be posted to the consultant's blog. So if folks are watching and want to watch it through that, it'll be available to watch live what's going on. And with a tweet stream that you can ask questions. Same deal as the board meeting.
That's fabulous. Thank you for letting us know about that. And I presume that people who might be thinking about the immersion course as something that they would be interested in participating in would get a lot out of listening to a group of people talk about what has happened for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. Excellent. All right. Shall we press forward then and begin consideration of today's agenda? We are going to tackle, for sure, 2 topics that are critically important to us, and a third that is emerging and, what would you say, it's like a brook, a stream that's been flowing and ebbing and flowing for a while. So today we will finalize our 990 report for the IRS and consider how Creating the Future is going to publish something rather unique, an annotation that will go with our 990 return. We will also be discussing what our monthly reporting will look like, what the board needs in terms of information, structure, content, plan, etc. And the idea of planning and its evolution, I'm hoping we'll have a chance to consider, not necessarily coming up with any final decisions today, but there's an evolution in our thinking about planning, and I'm looking forward to the board having a chance to have a conversation about that. Is there anything else that needs to be added to today's agenda?
I think
okay.
if we have time, which is truly if we have time, I think I would like to share some of my thoughts on following up on My Awesome, because I know Dimitri and I have talked about some potential ways of thinking about engaging fellows, and I think it's I would like actually to hear some board perspective on it as I sort of spin a lot of this stuff in my head, because I do think it falls under both our demonstration goals as well as our engagement goals.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay, I didn't hear any others, so if we can move on then to the number 4, the consent item on our agenda, which is the minutes of the September 2014 board meeting. Is there a motion to approve this agenda item?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. Is there any objection to passing this item and giving it our consent? All right, done. Thank you. And again, thank you to Rebecca for the production of those minutes. Really appreciated. And to board members, you'll want to know that today's meeting, I think I'll probably take minutes based on the recording of the meeting, unless anybody else would be willing to offer their time to do that. I've been in conversation with Rebecca and with Deborah Beck about the kinds of, or the timing that they would like for taking minutes, and so we're continuing that conversation. Okay. All right, so let's start with the 990, and if everyone has I'm presuming that you're going to want to look at the online pages that have been done. And Dimitri, do you want to walk us through this? I'm thinking that it's now 41 minutes after the hour by my clock, and perhaps we could have this conversation until about 2 o'clock, until the top of the hour.
That's fine. The notes that I sent out, I think it was like Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon to you guys.
Yep.
Basically, I'm going to pull it up on my screen so I can walk through it at the same time as you.
And I'll keep watch on the clock for you, Gail.
Thanks, Candace.
Yep. Hold on a second.
So does everybody have those notes in front of them, or at least the the link to the web page. Anybody not know where we're looking?
I can get you there if you want. If you go to the About page, and on the top there's a 990s and annual reports link next to what is created in the future. And then in 2013, there is the Form 990 annotations and the annual report impacts and successes. The big part of what we were doing in setting this up was creating the annotations of the 990 based on the conversation we had at the previous board meeting, where we talked about what can we do for this, what opportunities does the 990 present to further engage anyone who's coming to the 90. Now, the first thing we did, which is actually not on here, but is in the PDF of the actual 990 that I sent to you, is we changed the URL. And let me pull that up as well, and then we can look at that. So we had what the discussion was, and it was actually Sydney who raised, why not just change the link in the at the top of the 990 form? And I talked to the accountant. Can we do that? Can we have a different form? And she said, yeah, sure. There's no problem. They don't really care, is what her comment was, as long as something's filled into that line. So if you look at that line, it now says more meaningful 990 2013. So if you type more meaningful 990 2013, if you type that link in, it will take you to the annotations page. So it will bring people, and obviously from this page they can get to our homepage and About Us and everything else, but instead of just taking them to the About Us, it takes them directly to this, which talks about our the 4 pillars of our mission, how we intend to achieve our 10-year goal, and then looks at the parts of the 990 that there might be questions on and annotates them more fully. And I went ahead and threw in little graphic representations of the 990, what sections are being talked about, they're highlighted, etc. So without my going through and reading everything on it, you can at least see what we were doing, and this was in following the request of the board that there be a more meaningful 990 than just the IRS form, which we have to file anyways. The only other thing that was changed on the form, I mean, there was 2 other things that were done, was we added a line where it's referring to Schedule O, which basically takes sort of bulleted items of the things that we've done, and we added our tagline, change the questions, change the world, to it, and then referred people to Schedule O. So we wanted to have that early on in the form, so that people know who we are and what we're doing. So have you had a chance to look at the form itself, or the web page, I should say?
So
Anyone
for
here
the form, yeah.
Sorry,
So
go
for
ahead,
the
Justin.
form itself, I think with sort of the constructs and the confines of what the IRS sort of lays out, I think that it does a pretty good job. And again, most of this is really in the Schedule O, because
Right.
a lot of the other components are really strictly financial reporting pieces. So I think the form itself, I think is very nicely done. I like that it updates to the annotations page. and I really like all the added detail of that's going into the annotation page. My only sort of first response was, again, we've talked a lot as a group. Sorry, I was glancing up. I'm looking at the annotations page. We've talked a lot about ensuring that even though this is referring to a financial and a tax document, that we capture more of the essence of overall effort. And I think I'm still feeling there's a little bit that's we might be able to augment with regard to things like how are people, being engaged in terms of time and efforts and where sort of generative processes are happening.
Justin, in that regard, at the top of this takes you to the annotation page because it's the 990, but if you go to impacts and successes, which is at the top of that page, it was something that we had similarly done, similarly as in the two videos that you see at the bottom of that page were there before, earlier on this year as we were working on them, but went ahead and basically took what was the bulleted items in O, which is very hard to read, and spelled them out on this page. I don't know if this is more along the lines. And then the videos, the first video in terms of what it is, that's that little 3-minute video that was put together at the beginning of the year that looked at the top accomplishments, which is very punchy and dynamic and full of energy. And then the second one is basically what has been accomplished over the last 5 years with a specific reference to last year where to find that in that video. In other words, it's between 8:30 and 19 minutes because it's a fairly long video. Talks about all the accomplishments in 2013 in a less graphic way. I mean, it's more of a description.
So I think, and again, I know this is the space that I'm coming from, which is a really strong desire to really embrace what we were talking about, which is assets are not just money, and that sort of anytime we talk about money, we need to really make sure we're making a strong connection for folks that it's not just money. It's not just money that it created those accomplishments for the organization. And so I think a lot of that is embedded in the videos, and I think a lot of it is there. But I think from a standpoint of we get someone to come to this page, and so some of this is human nature and how we engage people, but I kind of feel like once we grabbed people onto what is, what we decided and I think discussed was a augmentation of the financial nature of the 990 that really did elucidate a little bit more, I think there's a part, and I'm absolutely willing to work on this, so I'm not trying to push work, but to say, even on this landing page of this more meaningful 990, where do we say, when we say this sort of program was, X amount of dollars or had X amount of accomplishment, I think just really acknowledging, and here were all the assets that went into accomplishing that. Just right here, I think could be really powerful, is just sort of how I'm feeling.
Justin, can you be more specific about exactly what you mean when you say asset? Are you talking about volunteer time? Are you talking about other kinds? Be specific.
Yeah, so I think we've had the conversation that money is not the sole thing that drives all of what gets accomplished.
Right.
And I think that the challenge is that the 990 actually kind of forces you into that construct, that money is actually the thing.
I understand that, but I want to know exactly what it is you would like us to put in there then.
So I think I would like to see, some capture of that volunteer effort, some capture of, I think and I know I have to read more specifically, but I think there's the volunteer component. I think it's just us going through and saying what other, the same way that we think about what are the assets that need to be required to accomplish what we're doing. If we think about the asset-based program mapping,
Yes, I
is to
understand.
be able to say, if we look at our education program, what are all the assets that we identified need to be engaged, and really highlight those here when we're reporting out as what was. So I guess that's where I'm feeling that just connecting those two ways of thought.
Yep.
We do it really, really well on the planning side. We want to make sure we're holding true to it on the reporting side too. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps because for two reasons. What I just heard you say was that if we can broaden the criteria, if you will, or the kinds of resources that we're referring to, you're willing to help perhaps build that list out a little bit further. That we acknowledge that we are facing a November deadline for this document to be completed.
Well, the document needs to be filed like tomorrow.
Okay.
So as far as the physical document itself, barring any further adjustments or questions to that document, and I'm not talking about the web page. I'm talking about the methodology itself.
Yep.
This was, in working with the accountant, this is the end of the time frame that they had, telling them that this was the meeting it was going to be approved or any final.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me clarify that. Again, I think the IRS 990 form that has been completed that Dimitri shared, I'm perfectly comfortable with that going into the IRS, knowing, we took a really nice approach and we accomplished a lot in this one. There might be some things that we tweak moving forward, but I don't think it's worth holding that process up of filing that federal document that needs to go into place. I was much more speaking to the power that Dimitri has really sort of unleashed by having this web page where we are no longer tied to that reality, where we can shape a new reality for how to think about and look at the 990.
Sure. So would it be useful then, from the perspective of board members, there's two things we have to do. We need to call for consensus around the actual 990 itself that will be submitted to the IRS, and perhaps we need to, and we could do this offline, there's no need to take up board meeting time at this moment, but if you look at the annotation page, any of those lines could make a suggestion for us about what to track for the next 12 months that could go into the more meaningful page in years to come. It's almost like telling somebody after the fact what you were evaluating them on without them knowing up front, and we want to make sure that we create that thorough and exhaustive list of what are those resources that we want to make sure people understand beyond money, that we will celebrate and know and acknowledge it takes in order to make the whole program, the whole organization as successful as it is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that maybe there is a little bit more work that we need to do in creating those criteria as we track, and we also need to come to a conclusion about this year's document. And anything else? Any other board members you want to add? Anything else? Mark, any thoughts that you have about what you've seen here?
No, not really.
Okay. Acceptable, unacceptable?
I don't see anything unacceptable. I would probably have to know more to say acceptable, so I would just, it's not an area that I have a whole lot of familiarity with.
Okay. Okay. But nothing's really sticking out for you that's making you say, oops?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. In that case, and noting that our 20 minutes, roughly 20 minutes is up, if there's no other additions that we want to propose to either the annotation, the successes page, or the 990 that itself, the form, the return itself, and I'll just call that now. Is there anything else you want to see added, board members?
I have a quick question. Jim, are you still there?
I'm listening.
Okay, Jim, I'm curious as to, and I know you haven't had a chance to really look at this, I'm kind of, or maybe you have, curious as to what your thoughts are on the idea of what we've been doing. And I'm going to synopsize very quickly. We, at the last couple of meetings, have talked about how the 990, even though it is a federal tax form, people go to the 990, what do they know about the organization? So what we did is we created a new URL in it that takes people to this annotation page, which is what we've been talking about, that explains in much more detail what those items mean. Instead of it saying we spent X dollars, it really defines what those X dollars. It's the same thing that you would have in a financial report, which is an annotation of what the financial report means, but the IRS 990 doesn't give you that opportunity. And so we went ahead and did that. So what we're doing now is approving these changes in the 990 form, which refer to a web page or web pages. And what Justin was talking about is how do we go even further on those web pages to give even more, paint a better picture of what Creating the Future is in relation to what it does beyond just dollars. So all of the assets, the community assets, the volunteer assets, the mission assets, and how those are used toward achieving our mission. So that's really what we've been talking about here. And I'm curious if you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts or comments on anything.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I can't tell you how many times when you look at 990s, they really don't give you the picture. You know, first of all, there's requirements for the highest paid people, and the financial data doesn't tell the story. There's a difference. I mean, it tells a story, but not the story that you may want to hear. So the linking makes sense.
Right.
I didn't hear the end of that.
I didn't hear the end of that either. So what was the end of your comment, Jim?
Makes sense.
Okay.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jim. And
Okay.
I see we also, before we finish that vote, we also have Carl
Yes.
and Toby joining us. So, yay.
Yep. Yep.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yep. Carl?
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No worries at all.
Okay.
So are there any objections then to us confirming this return, 990 return for 2013?
No.
Good. Hearing none, then that is received or passed by consent.
So adopted. Submit that.
I will. Of course, Gail says that and goes into freeze mode.
Nicely done, everyone. What a lovely thing. So let's make sure that we share the information about what we've done so that people can see this thing. Let's find opportunities to share it so that others might see it as a wonderful model for themselves as well.
What are you
And
seeing
Jim says
those
I will.
opportunities might be, Gail?
Sorry?
What are you seeing those opportunities for sharing it might be?
I have no idea at this moment, and I'm conscious of our time that we want to move on to a different topic. So perhaps we can have that discussion via listserv.
I would like that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to include our broader community in that.
Oh, sure.
It might even be worth a blog post, a brief blog post that says, "Here's what we did. Here's, what are ways,
Yep.
what are you guys thinking, and what are ways we can share this."
And also, I want to note, Hildy, for you, that Justin was talking about how to expand further the annotation to include things beyond money, and also volunteer to work on doing that, figuring out how to talk about those issues. I'm happy to modify that web page as needed, and I think that also lends to what we're just talking about now, which is if there's a blog post, there's discussion there that can happen around that.
Sure.
As well.
Yep. Thank you, one and all, and welcome to Carl and Hildy. I think it would be lovely if you had a chance to offer your awesome before we proceed further.
After you, Hildy.
I am at the Council of Michigan Foundation's annual conference. I will be doing the closing wrap-up keynote plenary tomorrow, sending people on their way with questions that they can ask in their day-to-day lives that will bring a different framing to everything that they're hearing at the conference and how they can actually bring that into their lives. And that's awesome. It's also freaking gorgeous here. I am in Traverse City, Michigan, and I am looking out on a scene where the leaves are, oh, I don't know, maybe half, maybe a third turned, and so it is just this patchwork of colors, and yeah, life's good.
Beautiful.
My awesome, still standing. It's been a busy old few weeks where I seem to have crisscrossed half the country at speaking events and so on. So there's been rather a lot to do just of late. So very happy to be here, and yeah, good to see old friends. That's awesome.
Well,
and also awesome to hear Jim Bendel's voice on the phone. So hello to Jim.
Hello.
Well, and Carl, we're thrilled to be here with you, and we will hold you up in caring and loving arms. So, folks, we also want to consider what it would take for us to make sure that our conversations are done on the basis of as much as fulsome as helpful information as possible, not only about the programs itself in creating the future, but also in terms of future thinking and decision making that the board might wish to be involved in. So the question that's on the table then today, as we're thinking about our monthly board meetings and the kind of information that would cause us to make the best decisions, the first thing that we wanted to think about was what does this idea of reporting and collecting information and data, etc., make possible for us? For us as a board, for creating the future as an organization, for those who might be engaging with us in a variety of different ways, for our fellows. What does it make possible?
Yeah, let me ground this question with a little bit of sort of starting in the meeting people where they are sort of place in our first box in our framework. Over the past several years, I have been providing reports in various formats to the board on a monthly as I'd like to say monthly basis, but as frequently as I can. And like many executive directors, I'm pretty much making it up as I go along, trying to figure out what you guys want, what you need, what would be helpful. And when, in the olden days when we were consulting, we would urge boards to have the conversation to ensure that, I see Dimitri having a quizzical look. Can you guys hear me?
No. I just had a question for Candace. I'm sorry.
Okay. What we've heard from boards over and over and over, and especially heard from executive directors over and over, I'm now experiencing, which is, I don't really know what you want, so I'm giving you what I think you need, but I don't know if that's what you need, and so sometimes we see EDs give too much information, sometimes too little information, sometimes not about the right thing, and so what I'm experiencing is that I would love to know and for future, whoever's going to run this thing when it's not me, and for future boards, I would love to have a format of discussion where we can ask the question, what do we actually want the information that you get on a routine basis, not on a specific issue, but the routine information that you want to see, what do we want that to make possible for us as a board for our decision making, and then what would it take for that information to be that? So I just wanted to ground you guys in where that's coming from, and it's coming from the fact that I'm sort of smiling at the fact that I'm experiencing the exact same thing as every executive director I've ever talked to in 20 years of consulting.
It's a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Hildy. So at the bottom of my pyramid, I want to know that the show is still on the road, and that that I'm not going to get creditors knocking on our door in the next few weeks. So that's sort of the basement of the pyramid. Then I want to know how things are going in terms of just current projects, just a sort of a global overview. What are there stresses on the organisation? Can we do the things that we promised to do? And ideally, I want to get those sort of hygiene type questions that are at the bottom of the pyramid out of the way as quickly as possible, so that we can actually concentrate on the things that are interesting. Yeah, what's getting in the way of us delivering our vision? What are the opportunities that are out there that we should be grabbing in terms of delivering the vision? Who are the partners that are saying nice things about us? Yeah.
And if we had all of that, Carl, what would it make possible for you as a board member?
Well, what it makes possible for me as a board member is that ideally you get the important but dull stuff out of the way as quickly as possible, and then we actually talk about the things where I think we can add the most value, that are most likely to enable creating the future to achieve its potential. So we talk about what are the opportunities and the challenges. We talk about what's happening in the external world and so on. It strikes me.
I'm gonna push one step further.
Really, Hilda, you?
I know. This has never happened. So write this moment down. What does the, quote, important but dull stuff make possible? What does knowing that, and let's list out what the important but dull stuff is, what does having that make possible for each of you as a board member?
For me, it makes possible...
And define what the important but dull stuff is. Is that just a financial report? What is that?
I think it's a brief financial report, and I think it's a brief, sort of almost a traffic light for sort of the major bits of work that we're involved in. Are they red, amber, or green? Apologies, I can't remember if you guys have just got a two-coloured traffic light in the US, but we got a three-colour.
Okay.
We have two colors, go and stop.
No one gets out of the way.
Stop.
Go faster, stop.
No, that's Italy. That's Italy.
So to use our lovely terminology, a RAG, a red, amber, green. Yep. And why that is important to me is that and this is not necessarily about this board, I hasten to add. It gives me the confidence that just the basic stuff is okay, so that we can then go and talk about, for want of a better expression, the really important stuff, which is the big picture, because I think that's where we can add value as trustees. I do not want to micromanage any organisation that I'm a trustee of. I want to help the executive director and the staff think about that big picture. I want to help them. God, I'm going off on one here. I want to help them think about their dreams for what the organisation can do, because I think that's where I can make a bigger difference.
Nice.
So I'll follow up, I think, and Hildy, to sort of get at your question of the dull and mundane, which I think is actually, I struggle with this idea of how, and I think I frame this to some people, that boards approve financial reports, and I don't even know what we're approving. Like, we're approving that, yes, it happened. I mean, this is like, or are we approving that, yes, we think the report was accurate? And so that whole framework, I think, kind of leads us in the wrong direction. When I think about the mundane and I don't actually think of it as mundane. I think of it as Carl was saying. It's that critical piece of, we came in with assumptions about how resources were going to be engaged and utilized. And I know we don't really like that utilized, but you know. And so I think some of that is financial, and there are some real financial realities of, you know, we have to meet particular financial targets to pay rent, to pay, you know. So I think there is a part of the information that, as a trustee, I want to feel, or as a leader, I want to feel like, okay, just as Carl said, those things are taken care of, and we're not going to be in trouble on that side. But I think, and this actually goes right back to what I was saying about the 990 piece, what I'm really looking for is feedback on the assumptions that we made as we were planning and forecasting out. And that's not just financial, that's also, you know, again, all of these other assets that we thought. What do we think had to be in line in order to be successful, to get to from point A to point B, which we had talked about. And so I'm looking for a report or information. I don't know if it's a report, I can't, but I'm looking for information that says, somehow we expected this, we thought this was how things were going to happen, here's how it played out, or here's where we absolutely exceeded what we expected, or here's where we were falling back. What that makes possible for me is, rather than looking at something as a fait accompli, I can look at it and say, as a leader, I want to go into decision making and thinking. I don't want to just ratify decisions. I don't want to ratify stuff that's happened. I want to be in a place where I can say, okay, what got us to where we are, good or bad? And I think that's really important to focus on those two sides and to say, okay, well, what does that mean for our thinking? What does that mean for the assumptions that we're using as an organization? What do we need to potentially think differently about or approach differently? And I think the real critical piece, what does that mean I need to do as a board member? What contribution do I need to make? What thing do I need to be thinking about? What is my next step? Because I think full circle for this is, I want to make sure, and this is I guess as we go up that hierarchy, it's knowing some of the fundamentals, being able to think about, reaffirm those, question those, but then be in a place where we don't just spin responsibilities back to the organization. Hildy, I know you said an organization is no more than a collection of individuals. So if we spin it back onto the organization, that means basically we're spinning it back onto the staff. Here, do this, do that. And I think we need to unlock that and say, okay, if something needs to happen, what we are is we're really a brain trust. We're a brain trust, but we're also, you know, we've talked about this in the past, we can also roll up our sleeves and be an asset that's more than just a thinking asset. I'll stop.
Okay. Mark, any thoughts from you when you think about what would help or what would facilitate the best participation or the best thinking for you about topics at board meetings? What kind of a report?
You know, for me, I'm kind of with Carl, is that I want to see a dashboard kind of thing. You know, I want to know whether I have to lift the hood or not, or in Carl's case, the bonnet. If I don't need to, then I don't need to. And if I can trust the dashboard to tell me that, and that's a critical piece, is because we can't always trust the dashboard. That's why there's idiot lights on it. We need a dashboard that doesn't have idiot lights on it, and to me that's the key. You know, I want.
So can I ask then a follow-up question? Does that then imply that we would also in terms of the dashboard, need to have some kind of a rubric of indicators that tell us when it's time to be nervous or when it's time to be celebrating?
That for me that tends to be a moving target, but I'm really looking at this more as a protective mechanism for me. The victories and the other good things that are going on, I'm usually more aware of than the mundane, oh, holy crap stuff that's stuck 17 pages down in a financial report that I only got to page 16 on. Because the phone rang, or because the dog barked, or whatever, and wanted to go out. Really, that's what it's truly a dashboard I can trust. You tell me, hey, I need to dig into these 273 pages of spreadsheets to figure out what's going on, or I don't.
Thank you.
There's something popping for me. I'm sort of channeling Alex and wishing he was here. Alex always asks the question that homes in on things, and I'm reflecting, and pardon me, because your question about a rubric of indicators got my brain going, and you know that means that it's not fully formed. It's not even partially formed. The indicators we are taught to look at are someplace on a balance sheet and someplace on a profit and loss statement, someplace on some number, someplace. What is occurring to me is, and it's sort of a reflection on what the sentiment behind, but what both Justin and Carl were talking about, which is that those are indicators. Every frickin' number on a balance sheet is just an indicator. So what I want to know as a board member, because pretty soon, hope to God, I will just be a board member and not your staff person. As a board member, I want to know the story behind what that number is. What is it indicating? So I want to know the thinking part rather than just the number.
Right. And that's where the trust comment comes from for me.
Yeah.
Because I trust the number because I know the story behind the number.
And so what is it then that what would it take for us to have that story in as condensed a format as possible that we could trust on a dashboard? What would that thing need to be?
So I think about, I'm looking at the planning questions where, the first stage is, what does 100% success look like? And then the next question down is what needs to be in place to make that possible? And it seems like we're right in that question, which is we have a lot of assumptions about the resources and assets that are needed to make the work that we do possible. And so for me it is, knowing that we can't know all of those, knowing some of those are financial, some of those are not, it would be trying to summarize that, is to say, okay, for our, since education's the one that's most, sort of fully formed, what are all of the things that we said needed to be in place for that to be successful? And so for the first question is it actually hitting what we defined as successful? Are we seeing what we said we would see? So it's, we need an articulation of that. And then second is, of all the things that we said needed to be in place for that success to happen, how are we doing on engaging each of those things? And I think that's to kind of Carl's point that, you could just do sort of an indicator of some sort that says, yeah, we're doing well, or no, we're not quite getting that level of engagement on that piece. And I think, just as you said, the financial piece is, we so often look at that, but at the same time, just I think as Mark was saying, it doesn't tell a story unless we tell the story. which was we thought it would take this much money to have X. Again, remembering money just buys us stuff. So
Right.
we could have a budget that said we spent $10,000 on something, but we didn't get what we, and we look at that and we go, oh, did we spend $10,000? Oh yeah, we did. Okay, great. But it's like, well, did we get what $10,000 was supposed to get us? Or did we have to pay $12,000 to do it? Or was it $8,000? And I think fundamentally the issue was not spending $10,000 or not spending $10,000. It was, did we get what the $10,000 was supposed to get us?
One of the things that I'm noticing, though, about this conversation is that we're talking, again, about the monitoring, active monitoring, what's already happened, and largely grounded in basic resources like, money and time. I wonder if, Hildy, that you're asking us for the kinds of tools that would propel us as a board to move beyond the basic fiduciary stuff that we know most board members spend their time doing or talking about, to the kinds of tools, and I think, obviously one of those we've hit on is the trust that comes from story and imagining anybody besides you, anybody in addition to you who might be in that chief boundary pusher role, and the kind of relationship we would need to have with that person in order to feel that trust. So that's one thing. But I guess I'm asking, what else is there beyond the monitoring tools that we might also benefit from?
Carl posted a link in the chat there, and getting exactly what I was referring to. It's not just about the dollars. If you look at that dashboard link, it shows memberships, fans, entrances, visits, and some of the numbers there. Some of that stuff is short-term, has nothing to do with fiduciary responsibility, has nothing to do with revenue, but it does have to do with how well we're doing our job and how well the organization is serving its mission. And those things don't always have a direct relationship to the dollars and cents.
Yep.
Then one of the things that we would need is to have the discussion of what the indicators are in you guys' mind that we are doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole goal is not that we trust a person, but that we trust the systems, because a person can leave. And so while, yes, we are absolutely going to want to hire people and nurture the relationship so that we have trust in people, we also want to be able to trust the systems that we create. So what kinds of indicators would indicate that we are, in fact, let's focus, Justin mentioned the education part of our mission. What are the kinds of indicators that would tell you guys that we are actually either moving the needle or accomplishing what we said we would, or whatever? What are the things what are the indicators for success in our education mission?
So it's about reach. So that might be a quantity of how many people we're reaching, or whether or not we're reaching in particular types of communities that are difficult to deliver services to. It might be about engagement. So how much engagement have we got with fellows? So that might be the volume of traffic on the list server. It might be some sort of measure of influence. So how much are our blogs being read? How much of our stuff is being shared on Twitter or on other social media? How much of our stuff is being downloaded from the site? And then again, I'm not suggesting that this is about this board, but I mean, I would like just some, one number possibly that just sort of says we're not about to fall over financially. I don't want a number that says we're about to take over the world or that we will take over the world, just that we're okay. It's normal.
And what would an indicator be of that? What would tell you we're okay?
I think it's probably something about the balance between income and expenditure, and whether or not we have an overdraft. I haven't quite thought it through, but I mean, yeah.
If you look at a factory, you'll see days since, or non-injury days. What that number is, it's been 265 days since our last on-the-job injury. If we're just speaking about financials, then maybe we're talking about paying a bill late or an overdraft or whatever we define to be an on-the-job financial injury. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dollar-related thing, but it's an action that indicates something deeper that we need to look at in more depth.
Can I offer another question? So imagine, I think what we're doing is I think it's neat that we started with the meaningful 990, and now we're talking about meaningful indicators. And when I think about the concept of it being meaningful, I imagine myself in a group of people in a room, virtual or physical, with a bunch of Creating the Future fellows and partners. And them asking me as a board member, how do you know the organization is in a good place? Or how do you know, not only that, no, not even that, how do you know things are changing as a result of the efforts this past month or this past quarter? What would the things be that they would want us to be sharing with them that would tell them and us that we were actually making some kind of impact?
Yeah, I want to follow up because I think you're hitting it really clearly for me, Gail, which is, again, if we said we're expecting these kinds of changes, this is what we're expecting to see, that's what we need feedback on. Are we seeing that? And I come back, and I'm going to push all of us. Fiduciary is not financial. Fiduciary says you use your resources to accomplish something, that our goal, our job as fiduciaries is to ensure that the resources are used appropriately for the purpose of the organization. And the purpose is not financial viability. The purpose is creating change and the ripple out. And so I think that what I see in this, and I see us sort of replicating this, is, and Gail, I appreciated your point on monitoring. We get stuck in fiduciary, meaning we have to be financially viable. Yes, we have to be financially viable, but that's not actually, we could be financially viable doing a lot of different things. And if we're not accomplishing what we're set out to do in terms of mission, purpose, and change, and we're not connecting that, we're not connecting this financial model with that programmatic mission accomplishment model, we are not doing our jobs in a fiduciary. So I think there is a base level of, just as I think Mark is highlighting, we need to know we're not going out of business financially. Absolutely. And we need to know that we have to have, on the monitoring side, we do have to have a budget that says financially this is what we expect and here's the flows and all of that, and we do need some of those traditional financial reports that say, here's where we are on that, is there a red flag, is there not a red flag? I think that's a tiny piece of it, because once we're there, then what that makes possible is for us to not have to talk about that anymore. It allows us to say, okay, we're expending our financial resources as expected or in a responsible way. Now, what is that actually making possible? What outcomes are we seeing in terms of the accomplishment of what we want to have happen? When we talk about, I love what Carl said, reach. And I know it's really hard. I mean, here we are. We're in the same space that every single community benefit organization falls into, which is how do we measure community benefit? How do we measure something outside of the transactional things that we do day to day to day to day?
A thought. Go ahead, Dimitri. I'm sorry.
A couple of things. When I look at the what Carl, you sent that sample dashboard, one of the things that always comes to mind when I'm looking at something like that is it's sort of the butts and seats idea that is a feeder program successful because they have a lot of butts and seats. A lot of butts and seats means they are financially successful, but are they really moving the needle on appreciation of art, culture, theater, drama in the community, just simply because people are sitting in this?
Yep.
It's the tons of food thing.
So,
Right. Right. So there's, and I don't have an answer to that, but I just want to, offer that. And I also think about there was some work years ago that St. Luke's was doing around how do they measure success in different communities around work that different organizations were doing. And this was, I think it was like, it might have been domestic violence. I remember what it was, but the outcome was, well, they looked at the number of lawsuits in the community, and that the number of lawsuits went down. And so it was a measure that didn't seem to be directly related, but yet had to do with quality of life in the community and how people were relating to each other. So I'm trying to think about this in the perspective of how do we measure that, Justin? How do we measure the success of what we're doing in terms of are people integrating this? I want to say that Jim had to leave, and he at the beginning talked about how the philosophical frameworks of creating the future is part of what they're doing in everything that they're doing. Well, I would see that as a measure of success. That here is 25 programs in that community that now are based on this framework. So those are the kinds of things that I'm sort of thinking about. Obviously, the baseline is, the engine has to be running, and that's the financial, we're not out of gas. But, it's also where are we going? What's our goal? What town are we driving through right now, et cetera.
Yep. Carl, you were going to say something.
Dimitri, you'd love a book by a guy called David Boyle called The Tyranny of Numbers. In which he describes how in Victorian Britain the morality of school children was measured according to how many hymns they could recite from memory. I'm fully in agreement with Dave Boyle on this. I'm not a quantifier. I suppose all I'm trying to get at is that I just want to get some of that basic stuff out of the way so that we can do exactly what you're talking about, which is focus on the interesting stuff, which is how we make a difference. And for me, that's about narrative. It's about stories. Yep. It's about us trying to think through what it is that we're doing. So you'll get no argument from me on that, Dimitri.
Mm-hmm. There's something that's occurring to me. And it is a continuum. It's very much like when Carl was talking about hierarchy. I'm hearing us talk about three different things. I'm hearing us talk about that base of the pyramid, the absolute Maslow survival stuff. I love Mark pursuing the framing of it in the equivalent of non-injury days. How many days have we gone without paying a bill? How many days have we gone without whatever? And because that base level of Maslow is all about fear, and what you've been really clear in saying, Carl, and I think is just dead spot on, is that if any of us are in an emotional place of fear, we're not going to be able to focus on the bigger stuff. We have to have that confidence level before we can have the bigger conversation. Because we're going to keep coming back to, but are Hildy and Dimitri getting paid? We're going to keep coming back to all of those questions, and so that very base level. The second part of the conversation, though, before we get to the tip, which is, are we accomplishing our mission? Is it occurs to me there is a question of indicators that we are walking the talk of our values. And for me, for instance, if I were to give you a report right now of our financial status, it's great. Our balance sheet balances, we have paid all the bills, we have no bills outstanding, we have nothing, we have no checks uncollected. It is perfect. But when we walk the talk of our values, we're saying, okay, if we are building a workplace that is bringing out the best in everybody, as we have said we want to do, Dimitri and I are not getting paid. To me, that's a values place rather than a fear place. For some, it triggers fears. For some, it doesn't trigger fears. But for me, that's a values conversation. and that there's a whole level of values conversations that can be indicators in a dashboard that say, how close are we getting to walking the talk? What are the things what are the talks we said we wanted to walk? How close are we getting to that? So for instance, for about a year and a half now, every dollar that comes in, I sock away, and you guys have known, I haven't come to you guys in probably 2 years to say a bill can't be paid. Because I have been socking away 10% of every dollar that comes in into reserves for paying bills, and another 10% to go to salaries for Dimitri and me. Sometimes that means we get a whopping $300 a month. Sometimes we get $500 a month. In the old days, we got nothing. So it also means that there's in terms of, do we have reserves set aside? How close are we looking at comparing, again, values? Hildy and Dimitri made $1,000 this month. They made nothing 2 years ago. To me, those are values questions, and then there's the third set of questions, which are the are we accomplishing our mission questions. And I think that all three of those are critical. If I, as a board member, not as a staff person, but as a board member, I want to see all three of those. I want to feel, okay, I don't have to worry. Now, are we walking our talk? And how close are we getting to walking our talk? And are we accomplishing the mission? To me, those are the three biggies.
Okay, so I want to ask you then, Hildy, noting the time, that do you feel that you have enough information now, especially if we rewound the conversation afterwards, watch the trajectory of this discussion? Do you feel like you have something you can work with, perhaps with me or with another board member, in terms of creating that reporting?
What I feel I have is at least a basis to start asking more specific questions. So it could be that we have another conversation, which I would urge us to do, which are, what are the values-based indicators that we want to see? What are the walking the talk things that we want to see? Are we doing that? Can we hold our head high, and are we doing that? What are the mission accomplished things? I would like to have all those conversations, because I think, quite honestly, what I have a really solid sense of is how to report the financials in a way that doesn't that allays fears. That's the easy part. Are we using and utilizing? Are we engaging our non-financial resources in a way that aligns with our values? Those are the kinds of conversations I would love to have.
Okay.
Ariel, I want to add one more thought here on this idea of a dashboard, and I have found in using the high potential materials that having questions built into the answers on the form is really, really powerful. So if there is, and I'm thinking about it from the perspective of any future board member who's sitting in here, including the present board member, if this box, whatever it is, and I'm looking at the form that the Indianapolis Museum had, within those boxes, there's also what the questions are that generate those answers, so that I know, first of all, from the report writer's perspective, I want to say ED, but whoever is creating this report, staff people, whatnot, it makes it very clear what's being asked for here, because those questions are being answered. But it also is part of where the values, I think, comes in, Hildy, is because those questions are indicators of the values. That, why am I asking this question for this item? Because it's based on the values that we determine. So I think those questions are going to be really important and very clarifying, very enlightening. You know, when you're looking at this, oh, that's what 43,000 people having memberships means for this organization, because it answers this question, etc.
Yep. So if that's the case, then
I love it. Thank you.
If that's the case, then I want to transition us to the report that you shared with us, Hildy, the new thinking that you shared with us, because there's something crucially important in there in terms of your discovery or your view of the planning. It's not the planning process, it's the connection between planning and ultimate change. Because yet again, we are having the same conversation we have had several times as a board, about what are the indicators of our actual success and the change and impact that we're trying to make, and how would we track those on a monthly basis, or how would we make meaning of those. So I would really like us to consider that. What I can, it blew the top of my head off when I really started to think about what that means, especially as a consultant, what it means in terms of planning. Do you want to say anything at this point about that new knowledge or discovery that you have made? And I'm going to just presume that every board member has watched that video.
And if you haven't, you have to watch it right now.
It's pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful piece of information.
It really is.
I'm not. No, I have nothing.
Okay.
You want me to have something though, so tell me what you want me to have, and I'll have it.
Well, I know it's on the minds of board members that we want to create a plan. Right? We want to get that. We want to start all of this goes together so beautifully when you noted that the point of the exercise isn't the process of creating the plan, it's the act of striving for the change that we want to create. And that shifts everything about how we have a conversation related to our planning work. But all the details of all the conversations that we keep having are all embedded in the plan.
They are and they are not. They are if we think they are. If we think we need a plan and we're stuck on the fact that we need a plan, then we'll stop having the conversations we need because we'll keep saying, well, that'll be in the plan. And it was part of my my thinking about this in a more comprehensive way, having to it's like I said in the video, it's a thought that I've had all along, but having to articulate it as I'm starting to engage partners, it became very, very clear to me. There is no reason that we cannot, should not, have the conversations right now in our board meetings about what does success look like for our mission, and how do we want to accomplish that. And you hear so often that boards don't necessarily need a strategic plan; they just need strategic, being strategic. We can be having those conversations right now. We can have our next board meeting, although we've got some things planned. But we can have a series of board meetings where we're actually asking, okay, there's 4 pillars to our mission. If what does ultimate success look like, and what does ultimate success look like? How does our education mission feed into that? There's no reason we can't have that conversation, and then we've got indicators off of that.
We just did that. I just took 3 pages of notes based on what you just said.
Right. Yeah. So again, it's coming back down to if we keep focusing on we need a plan, we're giving ourselves a damn good excuse for not having those conversations right now. If we say we want to accomplish our mission, what is it going to take for us to accomplish our mission? We better start having the conversations about what it takes to accomplish our mission. And is there value, as we all know, in our all being in the same room with whomever our partners are in making that happen? Absolutely. One doesn't negate the other, but the thought that we would wait until we have a plan to have the discussion about what success looks like and how we accomplish it, we haven't been waiting. Dimitri and I haven't been waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think where that speaks to, and I heard it sort of very clearly with Mark and Carl, which was we want to feel comfortable unlocking ourselves from these monitoring components, that we can truly we can monitor but not worry. And so there's assurance there, and as all this conversation was going on, I was like, I want to know the organization's healthy and well, and that's from a resource standpoint, and Hildy, what you talked about from a value standpoint. I'm going to channel Alex, which is, I want to know that, or I'm going to channel our conversation from the last board meeting. I want to know that, Candace and Dimitri and our board members are feeling healthy and vibrant and being able to engage in those components, because that's what's going to allow us to actually be able to do the work. So I wanted to frame that piece. But I think in terms of what, Gail, you raised and what, Hilda, you've been talking about, is a clear distinction between the plan and planning. And I think I appreciate you sort of talking about and making that distinction in your video. And you may not have said it this way, but yeah, if we look at a plan, we have a plan. If we think about what planning we need to be, that's what's missing. So I think just what you hit on the head is, for whatever reason, and I'll speak for myself, I don't feel like this space that we're in, we have clarity around the success that we're looking for, both in our own work and for the organization. And we know all these different pillars of the organization that are out there, but we're not asking the questions about how those things are progressing. Part of it is, again, I come back to we have these two parallel functions. One, we're trying to figure out how to redefine what a board does, which is very theoretical and process-oriented, and then we're also trying to help be fiduciaries of the organization, which we haven't been particularly strong in doing. And I think that's where the struggle is that we can think theoretically about what bylaws can make possible and what great personnel policies make possible, but where I think where we're struggling, where I'm feeling like I'm struggling, and where the reporting is the connection is, how do I better understand what's actually going on the ground so that I can then add my contribution to planning that forward, to being able to say, if this is what we want to accomplish, what can we do? This is our leadership role. What can we do moving forward to continue to advance that? And so, again, I come back to, I think it'd be really good for us to talk about what's success in each of these realms of organizational accomplishment, wellness, and health for us as an organization. And I know I'm echoing just what you said. That should give us the indicators that we're looking for, and it will give us the opportunity to say, hey, I'm not sure that's exactly where I think it should go, or where it should go, or where it could go. And so I'll speak again from my own perspective. I feel like perhaps I haven't been able to fully engage in what you and Dimitri have already done in terms of that plan, and kind of unlock it and really come to own what all those measures of success are, and all the work that needs to go into doing that. And for me, I think as I now think back about my own quest for a planning process, it was really that. I need to get grounded in this organization and what it takes to make this organization. That's what planning is for me. It doesn't matter what documents on the other side, doesn't matter what goals are on the other side, doesn't matter what we've done. It's about me investing in and deeply understanding the causality of this organization. Because then I can ask the questions, to Dimitri's point. Then I can ask the questions that will give you exactly what you need to know for the report I need to know. But right now, I don't know what questions to ask. Is kind of where I'm struggling.
We can start having those conversations right now. Not right now, but we can start having those conversations very, very easily. We had a little bit of background. We had some initial conversations when 2 years ago, when there were barely any board members, starting to have the conversations about, we need a plan, we need a plan. We started to talk about what our vision was. It was where the vision of a world where people are living well individually and collectively it came from, was those conversations. And we started to have some conditions conversations. But we are so much more targeted now, and we're so much more, I mean, that was 2 years ago. And where we are right now, given everything that we're doing and everything that we know, I think we can start having those conversations very aggressively facilitated. They don't have to be, oh, let's spend 2 hours on vision. We can spend, 15 minutes on vision. We can start drilling down some conditions, and I think that we can really start to look at what is the needle we want to move. How do we know? And I think we can do that in 2-hour chunks in board meetings. And I would love to do that, I should say. Not I think we can do that. I know we can do it. I would love to have that be our next 6 board meetings until we've got this thing done.
And what a powerful way to demonstrate. To people watching the board meeting. Justin, you said that there's sort of two hats being worn here. One is the theoretical stuff, and one is the fiduciary stuff. But this is the theoretical stuff for boards on going through and looking at this from not a planning to plan, but a planning for accomplishment. And to do that in a very concrete way around the theoretical, but yet have a very concrete outcome from it. So I'm totally on board for that.
The thing that's occurring to me, Dimitri, as you're talking, and Justin, when you said that we have two purposes as a board, this board took a turning point several months ago when, instead of having conversations that began and stayed at the high potential of an issue, we would enumerate the high potential of an issue and then immediately ask, what does that mean for creating a future? And what that did was, it made it about governing and leading this organization, but by, as you said, Dimitri, are having the conversation in the first place and having it public and engaging as much as we can, which I think we need to do a much better job of, I will be honest. I think if each of us as board members is not inviting 2, 3, 4, 8 people, even one a month, to tweet along and watch along, then we're not doing our job of engaging. I am quite convinced that we will be the demonstration project that we need to be. We don't need to rethink governance for anybody else but us, and just demonstrate and explore. Ask the question: is it working? Learn. Maybe it's not working. Maybe this cool thing that we thought was going to work didn't work, and we learned that, and we move on and we try something else. But we're doing it publicly, and that serves the purpose, I think.
Yeah, Carl.
Could I just say it is working in terms of how we're doing, and the reason I say that is that in my own very, very small ways, I try and take some of what I've learned from creating the future in my day job. So and in relation to the board, my board made a major decision 2 months ago about a piece of regulation in this country. What the regulation is irrelevant, but anyway, I published a blog on our website where I essentially talked people through the meeting and what we discussed at the meeting, and I attached the board paper, and then I attached the template board paper to it as well. So it was all about our board being much more transparent, and I've had some really lovely feedback on it that wasn't just about the board paper, but about the fact that we were being transparent as a board. So that stuff sort of works. I think where I'm with Justin, and Justin spoke very powerfully then, and a lot of that resonates with me. I mean, I'll hands up. I've been occupied with all sorts of other stuff in my life just recently, so I'm not as engaged as I should have been. But I do feel I've just lost a bit of a sense of what our roadmap is at the minute, because as I've said to you many times before, guys, I come to these meetings, I really enjoy them, I find them really mentally stimulating and so on, but I'm not, maybe it's just me, but I'm not quite sure what our progression is.
And maybe there's the possibility that once we start actually using the tools that we're talking about in terms of monthly or quarterly indicators of whatever it is we end up tracking and examining and then sharing and having conversation about, we will start to have a greater sense of that progression, that accomplishment, achievement, etc.
Gail, what did we have on the slate for November and December in terms of conversation?
We said that we would like to start talking about recruiting for board members at some point in our December meeting. I don't remember what we said we would be looking at in November. No, in November we said we would like to, we were kind of toying with the idea of concluding the conversation about workplace conditions. But none of that is.
I would like to propose that starting at our November board meeting, that we start going through some of the key questions that will create that roadmap.
Sure. Anybody else want to speak to that? Thoughts on what the focus of November's meeting should be?
I'd be very happy with that in terms of sketching that out. And just on Hildy's points before about we should all be inviting someone, it's all my experience that you start with people who are warm supporters already. So we hopefully would give a push to all the fellows. And maybe one of the things that we could try and do is sort of say to the fellows once a month, we want you to nominate someone from the fellows to actively take part in the board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
What I would love to do is just the opposite of that, Carl. I would love each of us to not go to the likely suspects, go to the people in each of our own individual lives who we know that is interested in creating change in systems or et cetera. So for you, it could be somebody at NCBO. It could be for Mark. It could be somebody in the community that happens to be in a Rotary. To just say, we're going to have a discussion about how we create the future next week, and we're going to be looking at success. And I would really love you to at least watch the meeting and potentially even tweet into the meeting. But I think that if we're going to expand our reach, that a big part of that is that each of us is inviting people beyond the usual suspects. And our fellows are the usual suspects. The inner circle is the usual suspects. The people in our Facebook group are the usual suspects. We need to start really reaching out to people beyond that, and that's exciting to me.
How about we do both?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because we do it with our fellows. I mean, we invite our fellows all the time. We reach out to our fellows all the time in this, and we reach out to the Facebook group all the time in this. And that's where a lot of our participation has come from. But one of the many, many things, and Carl, you mentioned this at a prior meeting, and I totally agree with you, is that I would love to see us have considerably more engagement at these meetings. We've opened them up. Now we've opened the doors. Now it's time for us to invite people to the party.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a hell of a party.
I'm conscious of the time.
So,
yeah, I gotta go.
Well, if I can just add, though, I think one element to that agenda, which is, I think, getting into that space of the questions we're going to start asking and the conversations that we've just had, and I think, Carl, really, I appreciate how you shared sort of where you were feeling. I think us as board members, going back to Demetria's statement, we need to think about the questions. What are the questions we would like answers to that would make us feel empowered to do our job as a board member?
Mm-hmm.
So that we can get that, so we can each of us sort of say, what am I feeling like I'm missing? Or what is the thing that if I had, I would really be able to feel like I could contribute more, or I could feel like we as a board could be moving more forward in what we're doing. And I think for each of us to think about that and to be able to share that out, whether it's just sharing it to the listserv so that some of that comes out before the next board meeting, that may also help shape some of the conversations we need to have.
Yep. Is it the feeling of this group then that we would want to, even if it was just for 10 minutes, have a conversation about what we are ultimately aiming for in November at our November meeting? Even if it was just 10 minutes, I don't want to call it a review of a vision statement, but and I'm certainly conscious of the fact that we've had this discussion so many times, but now we're nailing it as our place to start.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Then, in that case, hearing nothing, can we quickly, can we do a go-around to reflect? This lot has been said in the last 2 hours, or an hour and a half. All of it connected in such lovely and elegant ways, and yet some not so obviously connected. What are you taking away? What are you noticing about today's conversation? What stuck out for you?
I'm going to go, and then unfortunately I'm going to go. Two things that are standing out for me. One is I'm really, really excited about the direction that we're going. I'm just feeling very, very good about the conversation that we just had. And as a board member, not as a staff person, but as a board member, I'm feeling like we're about to take a leap, and this is really exciting. Or not take a leap, because that's frequently not a nice thing to say. Oh, go take a leap. But I think we're about to take a leap in a good way. And the second observation that I just want to share with you guys is that it has been raining a little bit here, and then it stopped raining, and there's a plate glass window in front of me, and for whatever reason, it has, for the past half hour, been filling up with ladybugs. And there are ladybugs crawling all over the window, and it's just the most fascinating thing to see. So they're just flying outside, and I have a window full of ladybugs in front of me, and I just needed to share that. So with that, I'm going to go to the rest of the conference. I am the closing keynote tomorrow, and I have been observing all of the stuff that's been going on, all of the different sessions, so that I'm able to pull that together. And my close is going to be all about the questions people can take home with them that they can change the world with. So.
Thank you, Hildy.
Thanks, Hildy.
Pass on our good wishes. Anybody else?
I'm kind of reflecting on the book that Carl was talking about as the image of the tyranny of numbers, and the image that that invokes, other than the fact that I've got 614 hymns that I can recite, what that does to us in so many ways, not only from a board perspective, a fiduciary perspective, but also just sort of in our lives. How do we measure our life and what we do? And so frequently it's in the numbers, which is really the means, not the ends. And if the end is that these children have great faith in them and live their life in a spiritual way, the means is not necessarily what they're looking for, which is that they know a lot of hymns. And so I'm sort of reflecting on that and this conversation around the importance of that end and how we are really starting to define that in a way that asks the right questions to give us that.
My reflection on it would be that it feels like the conversations are getting a bit sharper. We seem to be, for example, finishing on time, which we didn't already do. It still feels a bit sometimes like the conversations are very intellectually stimulating but a little bit meandering. And I'm not sure what decisions we made today. Okay. Well, I did, yeah, okay, fair point.
I didn't hear what you said, Dimitri.
990.
Right.
So, again, sort of, I wonder if we're quite ready for that wider engagement that we're talking about. Yeah. I wonder if we still need to get to a point where we are a little bit sharper in terms of what we do, because my suspicion would be that the fellows would understand us and know what we're doing, and they would be able to cope with our discussions. Yep. But I wonder if those who are new to us wouldn't be quite ready for us just yet.
Yep. Thank you. Mark?
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Justin.
Well, I was just gonna kind of take that thread from Carl. I think I agree of sort of that readiness. I think there's still some issue of how detrimental is it to actually show some of that vulnerability and allow other people to see. But I agree. I sort of feeling like in that space of like, oh, are we ready for sort of prime time on that? Which takes me to my point, the thought that was going through my head, which was, as perverse as this is, I appreciate how hard this is for us. Because I think even though we have a powerful framework, we're demonstrating these are not easy things. They're really hard. And just as Carl said, we're giving ourselves just this wide open window to think about this and to try and come to some resolution. And I think the fact that it's not easy is really beneficial to us in trying to think about what are those implications going out into the world. I mean, Carl, what you said about us being ready, it's like, well, who's ever ready for this? and what, but at the same time, it's like even though we have this really strong tool, we're still having the same trouble that everybody else is having. I mean, I just kind of laugh. I'm like, we are having exactly the same conversations, just with more depth than a lot of organizations have and a lot of boards have. They just sort of run away from them, and we're running into them. But it just makes me, it's like, okay, this is the way it is. And us navigating these issues is just so wonderful, because it's not that the issues aren't there, it's not that the questions aren't there, it's that trying to figure out the answer is a muddling through process.
Thank you.
And I scared Carl off.
Oh dear. Mark, what are your thoughts in reflecting?
Guys, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to go.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Carl.
See you soon.
See you in a month.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Mark, are you still there? Can you hear us?
Hi, boys.
I don't think Mark can hear us either. Dimitri or Candace?
Well, I thought I gave you a reflection.
Yes, you did. You did. Sorry about that. And Candace?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time speaking, so I'll make it really short. I think it's just always really amazing to see you guys take an issue and, like Justin said, not run away from it, but tackle it head on, even if you don't know the answer right away. Just being that awareness and leaving those doors open.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. For me, I spend a lot of time with boards pondering all of this stuff on a regular basis. And so I find it fascinating to observe, to be an observer and a facilitator, sometimes at the same time, sometimes not particularly, possibly not particularly finding it easy to differentiate between the two. But what has really been interesting to me is the idea of who it is we think might best participate with us as we're thinking our way through the future, and really understanding and having a strong sense of the value of people who are close to us and people who might be more distant from what we're all about. And I really do think that there is huge potential, having watched boards who have been very nervous about inviting company into the room when they're thinking their way through very difficult questions, and watching the value of having people who don't maybe have as great an investment in the immediate process, but have a significant investment in the change. So I really do feel that there is a great value in both fellows and friends, or more distant cousins perhaps, who will be there to support us and keep us on a path that we know we want to be on, but sometimes get so lost in the day-to-day or the weediness. So that's just one of the many. And thanks so much, you guys, for your willingness to wade in. Justin, I suspect that there will be more conversation about what happens with these indicators and with these, this reporting tool that we're trying to create. It may not be the definitive tool in the short term, because we're going to have planning conversations that are going. Oops, not the planning, but the planning, the other kind of planning. That it will undoubtedly influence what the tools look like down the road. So thank you for your time, one and all, and we will have a guest at our November meeting, at least one that is an official guest, and that is Zach Breaker, and we will look forward to welcoming him and any other folks that join us that day. And I hope Rebecca is still there. Has she been commenting at all?
No, have not had anything further from Rebecca. If you're there, Rebecca, let us know what your reflection is. And just wait for a second. While waiting for that, I just wanted to mention, to add something to Justin's comment about the ready for prime time idea. I think that sometimes, though, you also rise to the occasion, and that having people here, or having participants, or having guests, or whatever, and that also addresses what you were just saying, Gail, about having folks who are interested in the final outcome, if not in the process that we're going through. I think that those two can mix together in a really interesting way. So I don't want to be afraid to have people come in if we're not totally, it's sort of like cooking in the kitchen versus presenting the food at the dinner table. I'm kind of like, I like people in the kitchen with me. And if I make a mistake with something, great, they're there and they can like pick up the salt and, add it. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Beautiful. Okay, well, at the 12 minutes after the hour, and not hearing anything from Rebecca, we'll say thank you to all of you for your time, for your interest, and continuing participation, and we'll see you in 30 days-ish.
Great.
Great.
And Justin, can you just hang on for a second so we can choose a date?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, and actually I was going to ask Dimitri if you had a couple minutes too.
Sure. Bye.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.